Okay, Google. This is a choice. Y'all remember Google Stadia, right? Unceremoniously shut down cloud gaming service. It launched to little fanfare. It had barely any games. It was feature incomplete. It was essentially rushed to launch. The technology did get better over time, but it was rocky at launch. And the business model was terrible, charging full price for cloud-only games. That basically is the thing that killed it. And it was just a service that was not appealing in any way. And you had to sign up for a subscription to get 4K 60 FPS. And I don't know what they were thinking with the way they released that technology. The technology itself is undeniably cool. The way it was handled, though, yikes. And the end results were not entirely unpredictable. I called that it would probably not survive for long. I mean, before its launch, really, if they didn't change things. And so that leaves us with the current situation where Google is trying to revitalize their cloud gaming endeavors through YouTube, as in make YouTube a platform for cloud streaming. This was reported by the Wall Street Journal, whose article was paraphrased by Video Games Chronicle. The headline here reads, Google is reportedly testing a product to play games via YouTube. Google's last gaming project, Stadia, shut down in January. Now, we don't know a whole lot about this new service, but it's an interesting strategy to fail at something so epically and try again. We'll see if lessons were learned. For now, though, all we know is that apparently, currently the product, the streaming service is called Playables. I guess, since it's part of YouTube, it'll be called like YouTube Playables or something. It gives users the chance to play games on mobile devices or desktop computers via the video streaming platform, which is essentially what Stadia could do as well. It actually took a minute for Stadia to become available on mobile devices, which was one of its failures, its lack of accessibility at launch. With this service, it seems as though they want this to launch so that it can be accessed on as many devices as possible. It'll allow players to play games instantly via the YouTube app on mobile devices, similar to Stadia. Now, what this feels like to me is turning a feature of Stadia into an entire gaming platform. Recall that Stadia, one of its promised features was that through YouTube, you'd be able to watch somebody stream, they'd be able to post the link, you'd be able to click on it, and then dive into the game with them via the cloud and stuff like that. This seems to be like an expanded version of what they had planned in terms of YouTube integration for Stadia. This time, they're trying to make the YouTube name sort of the marquee marketing tool for this, because YouTube is a well-known brand and platform and thriving platform. And so by integrating their cloud gaming service with YouTube, they're hoping that more people will engage with it, where Stadia was a completely new brand, and with how little traction it gained and how little fanfare it got and how word of mouth wasn't entirely positive, the Stadia brand failed to gain traction. With YouTube, people can go to the website, and I'm assuming there's going to be some kind of button, some kind of link you can press that will take you to Playables and all of its available games, whatever they might be. That's one of the things that's unclear. Video Games Chronicle highlights these elements as well. It's unclear if Playables will harness the same technology used by Stadia. I would imagine it would. I would imagine this is a repurposed version of Stadia. They still have that technology constructed. It would make no sense for them to just burn that all down and then start over. Stadia no doubt is going to be, or pieces of Stadia no doubt will be an aspect that this platform will utilize. And it's also unclear if the scope for Playables will go beyond basic titles at this stage. That's a big question. What kinds of games are going to be playable on Playables? Is it going to be like your mobile titles, or are we going to get, AA, AAA games on this thing as well? And if that were to be the case, this would just be Stadia, but with a YouTube branding instead. And also, what is the business model? The business model is what killed Stadia. If this is yet a repeat of that, where you have to spend money and buy full price games that are going to be cloud only, then this is dead on arrival once more, and that would indicate that Google has learned absolutely nothing from Stadia's failure. But if they make it so that it's part of, YouTube Premium, and it gives you access to a whole library of games, then maybe there's a chance that people will actually engage with this stuff. If they make the business model more like Game Pass, where it's a low monthly fee for access to a library of compelling games that grows continuously, then maybe there's a chance for this thing to thrive. And then there's the question of if Playables plans to integrate AAA games and AA games and all that, how many developers are willing to give Playables a chance after how badly Stadia burned those developers with the way they invested on Stadia ports that ended up just being for naught because Stadia crashed and burned and it didn't gain enough of a player base. Not to mention that Stadia's shutdown was so poorly communicated that a lot of developers just didn't know that this was going to happen. So they had to go out of their way to plan migration of players who bought Stadia games, which because they're cloud only, they were going to lose access to that. So publishers and developers had to find a way to migrate those players to other platforms and find ways to transfer their save files and stuff like that. It was a whole hassle that Stadia put upon the developers who they did not communicate with in regards to the shutdown. And not to mention Google's propensity to kill off products before they've had a chance to thrive. I mean, they killed off their first-party studios before they even shipped a game for Stadia, and that was already an indicator of just truly how committed Google was to Stadia. Not a whole lot. And so that lack of commitment, just generated a lot of distrust against Google. How can Playables win that trust back when Google couldn't even believe in their first-party studios during Stadia and give them a chance to ship a game and give the platform some kind of chance to thrive before shutting it down? With Playables, it just feels like with Google's track record, it could be just history repeating itself where the service might not catch on as much as Google would like, and then they'll just end up sending it to an early grave as they've done with so many products. Google has done this so many times that there's a dedicated website called Killed by Google that highlights all of the services that they've killed, all of the products that they've unceremoniously ended, and all of the ideas that just never thrived. Google just has this tendency of having lofty ambitions, but executing poorly. And then when the going gets tough, instead of supporting a product until it can get to its maximum potential, they'll just give up on it very quickly. And so among the products that were killed off recently was none other than Google Stadia 2019 to 2023. And since then, look how many other things, how many other projects and products Google has killed preemptively. Look how much stuff just didn't pan out for a company that just seems to be throwing darts blindly in the hopes of hitting some kind of bullseye. That was one of the fears when Stadia launched. People were like, okay, so the games are only going to be on the cloud. When people buy these games, they're not going to own it in any way, shape, or form. So if Google gives up on Stadia preemptively, as they've done before, what happens to those games? And we certainly found out when Stadia did, in fact, shut down preemptively, when Google just didn't support it on the level that they should have, or that they said they would. And so just players and developers alike were screwed over by how poorly Stadia was handled. Now, to Google's credit, they did actually offer refunds for hardware and software purchases. They didn't refund subscription fees, but they did refund game purchases and things like the Chromecast and controller purchase to access Stadia at launch. But with that said, who's to say that Playables won't fall under the same fate? And so that's going to make it a lot harder for customers and players and developers alike to trust Playables when Stadia is such a big stain on Google's cloud endeavors and their propensity to send their services to an early grave and to be so poorly communicative about it too. Google did try to salvage the Stadia technology and find ways to reuse it somewhat by doing things like offering it to third parties such as fitness giant Peloton to offer gamified versions of their workouts via the cloud, but that has also now been shut down. So it seems as though with how much money they've spent on cloud technology, because the technology itself does work fairly well and they have managed to refine it over the years, with the technology still in Google's hands, they're finding ways to repurpose it. And again, it's a matter of just how they handle the business model, the game releases, the scale and kinds of games that we'll see on it. And I mean, if they can develop first-party games, exclusives for this thing that are compelling, then people might gravitate towards it. But I'll be honest, it's hard to have faith in Google with this endeavor after the disaster that was Stadia. But at the very least, Phil Harrison, who's run so many of the things he were in charge of in the gaming sector into the ground, he's left Stadia, so maybe there's somebody competent and who has some idea on how to handle a service like this who will be able to make this cloud service shine. I don't know. Only time will tell. For now, though, I don't know about this, Chief. I don't know about Google making a second attempt after just how poorly Stadia was handled. We'll see if Google can find ways to, make the second time the charm, if you will. Or at the very least, that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on this idea of YouTube Playables and what you think it requires for it to be successful. Share your thoughts below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.